Good evening, dear viewer. Today I'm doing another cheeky little meme build. The idea is to do damage exclusively with the Shadowmist ring, Braid of Seductress, and my melee. I have one equipped firearm because I need to have something, and then I have the Water Arcana in the first row, and then I equipped as many prophecies that are unrelated to spells or weapons because I won't be using any. These are my stats, and more importantly perhaps, these are my beads. All about being as tanky and mobile. Ailment immunity bead is very important, as well as the 2 dash beads. I've done this before on Scarlet Coast, probably about a year ago, and it went very well. There really were no issues. This was in a much older version of the game when the Shadowmist ring was actually a lot more powerful. Enemies didn't used to get any kind of status or ailment resistance, and you could really just chain. you could stun lock pretty much any enemy, any boss, by dashing in and out with Shadowmist and getting your stamina back with a charged melee. At the time, melee was also boosted. The melee charge was boosted by your spell recharge. It was considered a spell, so it would come off cooldown just in time to get all your stamina back, at which point you could keep spamming your Shadowmist dash and keep whatever enemy you had in front of you stun locked, including bosses. It didn't work very well on Galley Slave when he was in Iron Gate because of a few attacks and sort of glitchy behavior of the ring, which sometimes got you dashing towards him but then landing still in front of him instead of behind him, so that was a bit of a problem. But generally it worked pretty well. So it's been nerfed a little bit since then, but there's a few things that work better in this version of the game for the build, which is the fact that you can put that water prophecy in the first row and get a little bit lucky, as I do now with Shattered Soul on first roll. And the cool thing again about that prophecy is that it's re-rollable, so if you don't like what you got, all it takes is 1 feather, which are now, feathers are more plentiful than ever. So with just 1 feather, you can keep rolling until you get the exact arcana that you want. And for single target, of course, you can't beat Shattered Soul. And for mob control, you're going to see me grabbing a couple of other things later in the run. And yeah, this build is entirely reliant on Water Arcana to do damage. I mean, yeah, sure, you're going to pop your charged melee here and there. You are going to do some damage with just the Shadowmist regular dash. I think it does like 35 damage, and there's the freeze effect. But no, most of the damage will be coming from the Arcana we pick up. I didn't do a very good job with these first 2-3 mobs here, whatever they were, 2 mobs. But things get better progressively from here on. One of the issues I end up running into again and again in this run is just a lack of relevant or useful Arcana, which is to be expected since I'm not using most of the usual equipment and tools a prayer has. And now I'm dealing with this guy. He has some interesting behavior here where he's trying to get some distance from me, and he's sort of like set on executing this sort of command of gain distance, use your ranged attack. And if you just chase him little by little just by walking towards him, he just keeps running. He doesn't know how to snap out of that idea of his. You would think he would counter by just smacking you in the face and say, "Hey, leave me alone." But no, he just keeps running. So I'm gonna do a ranged attack. I gotta run. So anyway, that's what happens there. As I said, I think I popped 2 elixirs in the first couple of mobs, and they weren't even particularly difficult ones, except for the mini boss crossbowman. But things do end up working out pretty well, as you'll see. The dash distance ring, plus 50% to dash distance, not ring, sorry, bead, works quite well with Shadowmist. I believe Shadowmist already gives you a boost to dash range, if I'm not mistaken. Or perhaps all rings do. Anyhow, it works well in this case. I found in a previous run I'm able to even dash just straight through an axeman throw, which is very unusual. I used to just sort of hit a brick wall whenever I tried to do that in the past, but I don't know if that's due to a change in the enemy behavior or Shadowmist ring, or if it's because of the bead's added range, but yeah, it works pretty well. You acquire the target from a longer distance, and you traverse, you land farther away from them, which I don't know if that's necessarily a benefit if you're one-on-one, but if you're dealing with groups, that can definitely help you. Something interesting to keep in mind about, I guess, dash in general, you gotta be on the ground to do it, so you can't Shadowmist dash through someone if you're not on the ground. Seems like a small thing, an obvious thing, but I noticed myself sometimes in the midst of combat jumping over projectiles and wanting to immediately Shadowmist, which of course is not possible. Here, my muscle memory got the better of me, and I ended up popping 2 bullets in that one enemy. Kind of, ruining the idea of the run to an extent, but I promise this is the only time I did it, and you can still see that everything here is accomplished just with Shadowmist dashes and the occasional charged or uncharged melee even. It's a little hard on this map sometimes to figure out where the enemies are. I sometimes have trouble finding the camps. They can be, above ground, underground, under a bridge, above the bridge. And here I'm dealing with the mini-boss Gravedigger, who seems to have quite a bit of status resistance. Now I know it's a 50-50 chance to proc the freeze from Shadowmist, but he takes way too many dashes to freeze for that to be just pure bad luck. I'm pretty sure a lot of these mini-bosses have some significant status resistance, which is all the more interesting considering that the Widow, the familiar of this area, seems to have none, as you'll see later. I do like this playstyle. I know that's a bit much to say. It's a very, very, very simplified build, if you can even call it that. But I've always kind of likened these closer engagements to like a brawler, where you're you're surrounded by all these other dudes and they're all trying to punch you, and you're constantly repositioning, and you punch one guy, you dodge the other, then you punch him next. It has this sort of Jackie Chan movie vibe to me for some reason, and attempting to do this sort of melee only setup kind of, is more in line with that experience. I look forward to trying this out with melee weapons when they come out. I wonder to what extent I'll be able to push the concept. Oh, see, sometimes you dash and you still get hit. I mean, you don't dash through for some reason. Maybe that's because you ultimately don't have iframes on the Shadowmist. I don't know. It's just a guess. And I think that freeze there, that when I sort of stopped short of dashing through, I think that came from Braid of the Seductress rather than Shadowmist. And that's also something else that I didn't talk about much. It's the melee the melee damage reduction. Very handy for this little gimmicky build, as is the ability to regenerate some of the health. At this point, I was sort of dancing around thinking whether I wanted to fight the Calamity or get the Catalyst, and I figured I don't think I could effectively deal with the Catalyst with just melee attacks. Don't think my sanity resistance is that high, and I decided just to pick a spot, a sort of safer spot to fight the Calamity in. I was trying to make it out of this courtyard with all the traps, and it ended up being the Shield Bearer, who is one of the easier calamities to deal with when all you're doing is Shadowmist dashes. And with Shattered Soul, of course, shouldn't be much of a problem. I felt bad for whoever this guy is, the Boon, the Fallen Prayer. He did help me. He kept the Shield Bearer distracted, but honestly, it wasn't necessary. I got this. I got this. You could have stayed home. All right. Bit of punch here and there, and he's done. And like I was saying earlier, there's lots of feathers. The new stat, Faith, and probably to an extent Mind as well, contributes to all this abundance of resources. One of the previous runs I did on this map, I ended up almost filling my Arcana board. I think I had 4 empty slots left. And part of that is just, oh, hang on. So here I get Snowball and Freezing Gust. And these two, I believe, are the best Water Arcana for dealing with mobs, groups of enemies. They both center on, or they both offer a chance to freeze enemies around the main target on either thawing or killing the target. So it's pretty good stuff. So having that, at this point, that first row of Arcana is pretty much all that's going to carry us for the rest of the run. I mean, sure, I also have an ever longer health bar. The ailment immunity from the bead, super important on this map. I can keep, running through those clouds with impunity, so that's a huge help. And I did kind of eat some stupid damage here. I got caught with my pants down, so to speak. So it's not all. It's not like it was completely smooth sailing, but it didn't play that well. It still worked out. So what I'm trying to say here is this stuff works, and it works a little too well, if you ask me. It almost, yeah. But then again, you do have to get the relevant Arcana, which is not entirely luck-based with the Prophecy of Water. This is completely useless. I got Health Sacrifice for no tangible benefit. I got Reload Slide and Revenge, and none of these things do anything for me. which is fine, which is completely fine, because, as I said, we already have everything we need to complete this run successfully. Something that did turn out to be a bit of a challenge on this map is the unevenness of the terrain. So something like this, that's very dash heavy, you kind of want to be on level ground as much as possible, on a flat surface. Oh, here we go. The Executioner is here, and here you can see that Freezing Gust just, how those two targets just keep bouncing the frost effect off one another. That's what that does. It's very powerful. And again, you can, if you have like two heavies next to each other, you can pretty much keep them perma-stunned with a bit of luck using that Arcanum. Again, 3 more completely useless Arcana. I really think it'd be nice to have a few more melee-related Arcana, and perhaps that's what we're gonna get once we have melee weapons added. I recently saw some discussion online about how the new map has kind of raised the bar for level design and in terms of intricacy and exploration, as well as just overall visual appeal, and how, you know, some people feel that some of the earlier maps like Scarlet Coast also need a little facelift or some additional layers of complexity added. It's an interesting thought. I have nothing against Scarlet Coast visually or gameplay-wise, but if they wanted to expand it, or if they decided they had the resources to expand it, I would also be in favor of that. Yeah, this was kind of cool. It's you know, if you like iframes in Dark Souls, then this is the experience for you. If you like dodging and abusing iframes, this is basically that. It's all about timing, positioning, and managing your stamina. That's it. And abusing your Arcana. I think this was the first my first encounter with spiders on this map, so I was wondering how this was going to go, and turned out it wasn't too bad. I got bit. They are fast, and they can still overrun you even with a sizable stamina bar. Luckily, they don't do a whole lot of damage, and I do have that ever so important ailment immunity bead. I suspect I would not be able to get away with this silly ass build without that bead. Probably get bogged down by various ailments and just get body blocked to death, stamina drained, and so on. Here, this is me trying to figure out where the hell the extremely dangerous mob is, which of course turns out it's underground. So in the meantime, I say let's go find the Executioner. Oh yes, here I believe I find my 29th, yes, 29th bone fragment, which is going to make the hunt for that last one missing piece all the more thrilling, I suppose. I feel like they've been trying to pad out the game, let's say, a little bit with a few too many scavenger hunts, in my opinion. You have the divine essences in the tower. You have them on Witch Mountain in order to access the various secrets. Here you've got these bone fragments to get a weapon on Velmorne. It's not, it's kind of cool the way you can hunt them down, at least both visually, but also they emit a very particular humming sound, which is distinct. It's different from the sound of cursed item. Initially I thought it was the same, but actually there's a very distinct sound that these pickups make, so that aspect of it is cool. That aspect of it does kind of enhance the exploration, having to keep your ears sort of up. But it's still ultimately just a collect-a-thon type of mini game, and I feel like there's a few too many of those. You've got mask fragments, you've got, I guess it's a way of padding things out a bit, and I can't think of any replacement to that at the moment. And it's not something that you have to rush to. It's just an extra thing to look out for on your many returns to the same map. So it's not, I can see how that provides some value, but it's frankly, again, I just think that I'm hoping there's not going to be too many more of those types of incentives for exploration where it's just having to pick up 30 pieces of this, 40 pieces of that. It's, come on. Again, here I didn't have a great start. I ate an arrow, ate some other attacks, but Henbane did its job, and by this point, with all of these absorbed manifestations, and I think that additional health bead as well, my health bar is pretty massive, actually, pretty long. It's one of the longest health bars I've seen in the game, actually, in my runs anyway. And turns out this is one of those sewers that is not connected to the main complex. It's just sort of a sectioned off sewer. So I have to come out and I have to go enter the Widow's domain at this point, because I didn't feel like there was much else worth doing. Yes, there were curse chests and other little events that I could have challenged myself with, but I didn't much see the point. Truly, though, this new area reminds me of almost a legacy dungeon in Elder Ring, and certainly is on par with, if not surpassing, of levels in like Dark Souls 1, 2, or 3, But distinctly the vibe that I get is that of a legacy dungeon in Elder Ring, with its own unique flair, of course. Again, more spiders. I was considering running past them. But then again, it's kind of fun dashing between them, and I was hoping to start a chain of freezing gusts, which didn't happen, but that's alright. And here I rush into the Widow room, and you guys are going to see what I was trying to say earlier, how the Widow appears to have 0 ailment resistance, at least. Okay. Triggered frost once, twice, 3 times. So you see here, the fact that sometimes I don't freeze her, that seems to be consistent with the 50% chance on Shadowmist. But when I was facing off against the other mini-bosses, they would take a lot more dashes to get refrozen. So yeah, it would appear that the Widow has absolutely no status resistance, at least to frost, which is strange, because I remember a while back a patch was put out for all of the bosses and mini bosses so that these various statuses can be abused as easily. Strange. But that was that. Thank you guys for watching and have a good night.